Welcome to Fortune Cookies Tarot. I'm Annabelle. I'm a tarot practitioner and psychic for over 35 years. And in this video, we're going really old school, back to the silent age of Hollywood. Before John Candy and Chris Farley and even Oliver Hardy, there was Roscoe Arbuckle, a groundbreaking comedic star whose warmth and timing lit up the silent screen. Arbuckle was Hollywood's original gentle giant of comedy, charming audiences with his expressive face, slapstick timing, and surprising agility. He rose from poverty to silent film actor, writer, and director until a fateful night, September 5th, 1921. In this video, we're going to examine the truth and the effects of media on the shattered career of Fatty Arbuckle. Welcome in, Tarot Maniacs. So this is a little indulgence. Today is my birthday, so I will be at a winery and also at another club where one of my friends will be playing. I should be doing a live at some point during the day, so you may see me in a little bit of a state celebrating nice and fun down at the Jersey Shore. So in this video, this is an indulgence for me. I am a tremendous fan of Fatty Arbuckle. I do love a corpulent comedian, and he really was the first of the first. So he predates, as I said in the intro, even Oliver Hardy. But John Belushi, Chris Farley, all of the big guys, John Candy, who I still have a rough time with it. I get very emotional about John Candy. We would not have had those guys without Fatty Arbuckle. So I will give you a little bit of information. There are two books on the events that we're going to be discussing. One is Room 1219, and the other is 40 Quarts of Liquor. So this reading is going to include a lot of drinking, some medical things, and it is going to involve SA, possibly SA. We don't know exactly what took place. Fatty Arbuckle was tried for this purported crime, but we're going to unpack some facts. We're going to look into my crystal ball. I do have a crystal ball right up there. So let's talk a little bit about Fatty Arbuckle. He was born March 24th, 1887 in Kansas. He was raised in poverty and abandoned by his father. Discovered by Mark Sennett in 1909, he quickly rose to fame with Keystone Studios. That was a moderately successful studio in Hollywood at the time. He was one of the highest paid actors in 1910 with a $1 million contract with Paramount in 1918. Huge contract for the day. He discovered Buster Keaton. He mentored Charlie Chaplin, and he directed under the name William Goodrich later in life. We'll discuss that as well. So I'm going to pull up the card view. I'm going to keep giving you some information about this amazing character. Super cute guy. So let's bring up that card view. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. My subscribership is growing. I have lots of fun lives that I have planned for the next few weeks, and I've got lots of great content for you. So I do kick it back to the golden age of Hollywood every now and again, and I do like historical and political stuff. So if you're into that, subscribe, come part of the tribe, and we'll all have some fun together. So let's bring that card view nice and big. What was the true source of Arbuckle's success and comedic appeal? We're talking about his early career when he was discovered. What was the true source of his success and comedic appeal? And while I'm doling out the cards here, I do want to point out that, you know, with our corpulent comedians, we're going to call them that, We do find out that there is some sadness under them. Chris Farley, famously, his last words were, "Don't leave me," to the gal who was leaving the room. Um, we do have to understand that comedy comes sometimes from a place of pain. Sometimes comedians and the clown in the room is doing so because they are in pain and they're trying to almost talk their way out of it by entertaining others. But when the lights go down and the curtain closes, sometimes that pain is too much and they don't make it through. So, um, for Fatty Arbuckle, or Roscoe. I'm gonna call him Fatty Arbuckle, even though it's probably a terrible name, probably not a name that he had picked for himself. That's something I did not find in my research where the name actually came from. So here, Death in Reverse. The death card is about transformation and evolution. And he was trying to maintain a fun and youthful perspective and almost like a circus environment around himself into the future. That joy of childhood, the excitement of childhood, the curiosity and fun of childhood he was trying to maintain. Here in the suitcase position, holding his tongue and being the one in the corner was not something that he was going to do. He wanted to branch out from that. By hook or by crook, under the surface, judgment in reverse. He did not think out the entire plan for being in Hollywood. He exceeded his wildest dreams and did not have an effective plan for that. Up here, I do think that there was a bit of a hole in his life. I think that there was a hole possibly from losing his father that was never filled quite up. His drive and creativity were certainly part of the source. So I think the whole of losing his father, the will to have a joyous, jubilant, juvenile kind of life, and plus this drive to be something different, to get away from that poverty life and to provide and be someone instead of a small boy in Kansas who had dirty shoes and no socks. This is what drove him. So noble, noble things. What kind of emotional burdens did he carry into his fame? There's a level of optimism. And also, he did not know how to be wealthy. He did not know how to play the game socially. There were people of his same financial bracket that he didn't always feel comfortable with. He wanted a more down to earth kind of experience. And I do think that the joyousness and jubilance of that youthful kind of milieu that he wanted to maintain around himself was what led him to excessive drinking, possibly excessive eating, though I do think his size was partly genetic. I am getting that psychically. I do think that that was, even in times of, even in thin times, he was still a little bit heavier. I don't ever think he was in, situation where he was starving or anything like that when he was younger. I do think that the affections of his mother was expressed sometimes in food and indulgence, and that translated to adulthood, which became, when we have the devil card, that is adhering to things that make us feel good that necessarily aren't good for us. So I do think that we see that. Money, I think, caused more problems for him. The more money, and we did talk about that $1,000,000 contract that he had in 1918. I think the more money he had, the more problems cropped up for him. And it's almost like he was wearing a suit, a social suit that didn't really fit him. Um, so yeah, yeah. So how did his relationships with Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton shape his energy and destiny? Let's start with Buster Keaton. And that immediately, I'm curious if we're going to get some twos in this spread, because it almost feels like when he partnered with Buster Keaton and started working with him, that exponentially the energy between the two of them grew and gave both of them a larger platform. So let's see what we get. We get 8 of Cups, not walking away, the 9 of Cups, and we have 6 of Cups there with the Ace of Cups. And some negativity there. There's some negativity there. So, this 8 of Cups, which is a never give up kind of attitude, I think the two of them in moments of low energy, or when they were rejected from a role, rejected from an individual, I think that they did kind of work together on that, propping each other up and supporting each other. Here, the 9 of Cups is the deck is stacked against us, but we, through our will and through our intelligence, can carve out a path. People love us for what we are on the inside. We're not this cardboard cutout of a beautiful maiden or a beautiful actor who they've uh, uh, dressed up and put out front and PR'd the snot out of. They said, we are the real deal. We are what we are. What you see is what you get. But unfortunately, I think that is something that did work negatively against them at times. I think maybe they drifted from that somewhat because Hollywood is an illusion, and they weren't allowed to be an illusion. No one was creating that illusion for them. So they were the real deal. They were what they exactly were in real life. And Hollywood, to some degree, did not let them get to a certain access point. And I don't mean in terms of success, especially for Fatty Arbuckle, but it was almost like they only got to a certain point. They were only allowed this far. So let's see how his relationship with Charlie Chaplin shaped his energy and his destiny. Very nice. So Charlie Chaplin, I think if we spoke with him, would say that much of his physical comedy came from Fatty Arbuckle. It was a well that Fatty Arbuckle tapped in him and really encouraged Chaplin to exploit in himself. Um, I think the relationship is very interesting because it's almost, Led Zeppelin called their music the most ancient form of weaving. And this almost feels that when they worked together, they could not quite weave together, but they honed their skills together individually, if that makes sense. I think when they scened together, it wasn't as good as it was when they scened separately and kind of coached each other along. Very interesting kind of energy here because it is very, very productive, but it is not very cooperative in a presentation sense. So like if we saw them riffing or practicing together, it would be like, oh, this is terrible. They really aren't working well at all together. But they would work individually very, very well together. If that makes sense, with one coaching and one actually acting it out. So I do think that this was the dawn of physical comedy. I think we can look at it as the dawn of the laughter that came later. Very, very interesting. Very interesting indeed. So now we got to get to the rough stuff, kids. So we're going to recount some events. And again, trigger warning, we are going to be talking about SA. We are going to be talking about some fallout from it and some details. So if you want to dip out of here, if you're going to be triggered by this content, please step out. I'll have plenty more content for you in the weeks to come and the days to come. So setting the stage, they were at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. It was Labor Day weekend in 1921. From what I understand, it was extremely hot as well. Keep in mind, this is during Prohibition, so there is not supposed to be any drinking. However, as we know, celebrities do as celebrities do. And Arbuckle was hosting a gathering with bootleg liquor in room 1219. So there are photos of the room after the party. It looked like it was pretty raucous. Aspiring actress Virginia Rappe, R-A-P-P, was actually her original name. She added the E because she thought it made her name a little bit more exotic. She fell ill allegedly during the party and is taken to another room. By some accounts, it is told that Fatty Arbuckle dragged her to another room. Rappe died 4 days later on September 9th from peritonitis caused by a ruptured bladder. She accused Arbuckle of essaying her, and that was what caused this ruptured bladder. According to some, he had said, "I've wanted you for 5 years, and now I'm going to have you." Arbuckle was accused by Rappe's friend, Maud Delmont, who claimed he had assaulted her. Now, if you read any of the books in the spirit of brevity, because I don't want this video to be 27 hours long, there is a connection with Virginia Rappe, Maud Delmont, and Fatty Arbuckle, another director that there was some friction with. Let's just put it that way. But let's see what we have here. What was the true energy that night? And I'm actually going to remote view a bit on this as well. What was the true energy of that night? What was the true energy of that night? The party. Let's step into that party together, guys. I'm going to tell you everything I see. And I do want to remind you all that Fatty Arbuckle was injured on set and had second-degree burns on his backside. I'm going to say backside. He did have a significant injury, and I do believe that he was given some medication, possibly morphine, for that. Energy of the room. 1219. It is loud, and there's plenty of music. There's a lot of laughter. They're not being cautious. Any of the guests, Fatty Arbuckle, any of the individuals of note are not being very careful about how loud they're being or the drinking. what's interesting is that there's a chunk of ice that they're chipping off, chunks, for their glasses in the corner, but it's also serving to cool the room. There's a fan behind it that is cooling the room, so the gals are going over and leaning in front of the fan, to cool off, but there is a big chunk of ice in there, and that is being replenished, periodically by the hotel staff. The hotel staff is aware of what's going on in this room. They know that there's drinking. They know that they're doing all sorts of raucous behavior, and people are going in and out of the room and having fun in private rooms. There's many paired off couples that are going into rooms, and same sex couples as well. I will make that notation. Um, Virginia is attending with a friend, and she is motivated. She's absolutely motivated to meet someone there. The room has a lot of different energies in it. There are some men who are there specifically to get some. Um, they know that there's young women there. They know that there's drinking there. Um, and I keep getting like a sweet liquor, so I don't know. It almost tastes like bourbon, but I don't think it's bourbon. It almost tastes sweeter than I keep wanting to say there's vermouth in it. There's vermouth in it. I don't know if that was the thing, if they would do bourbon or whiskey with the vermouth. I've only had vermouth in martinis as far as I know. This was the last great party of the summer for a lot of the individuals that were there, and it was almost a, kind of anticlimactic, because they wanted to be some of the people wanted to be outdoors, more Greek Gatsby style, like we're out on a big terrace and we're, getting some air. The room is incredibly stuffy. The windows are open, but there are too many people in the room for it to really cool off and get some circulation and air in there. And that's one of the tricks that the gals are playing. They're saying, well, let's get out of here. It's very hot. It's very hot. If they have an intention with a an intended, let's put it that way. It's so very hot in here. I do need to fan myself off. I need to fan myself off. Um, the party started early. I believe it started like in the afternoon, like right after lunch, like maybe even 12, 1 o'clock. I think people started to filter in. And oh, there's an amazing plant in the corner. There's this really beautiful like palm-like plant that's in the corner, potted plant. It's quite large. Um, correction. I don't think that that's in the room. I think that's in the hotel. It possibly is in the hallway. The hallway is much more quiet than the actual room where they're engaging in this party. Um, someone dropped a glass on their foot. This is one of the young ladies, and it did spill liquor on there, and that made a lot of people laugh. And I think she picks up the ice cube and is holding it between her hands, kind of cooling her hands off. By 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., the room is getting very excitable, and I do believe they ordered some food in, possibly from the kitchens. I don't know. One would assume they would have kitchens down there. The best hotels did. Uh, but there was some food that was ordered in, and it was put on just a few of the rolling carts, just like some nibbles, not anything significant. But I do think there was like some kind of roasted thing there. Um, and I do think Fatty Arbuckle ate. And it was like a standing eating kind of thing. Everybody was just kind of having a snack. And there is gin there. Now I don't know if there was another delivery but there's gin as we get into that clear liquor, I should say clear liquor, and I do think it is gin. As we're getting into the evening, that is happening. At one point, some of the ladies go up, I think, to the roof, and they're getting some air up there as the sun is starting to go down. It's starting to cool off, and they're kind of getting settled, um, and cooled off so they can come back down. And I do think that that was followed by a period of kind of primping again, like doing some powder. I feel like all of the girls went, or not all of the girls, but a large group of the girls like went to a room that one of them had, and everyone was repowdering and swapping out outfits. That, it was kind of hot and sweaty, getting cleaned up a little bit for I guess the third shift of this party. Feels like it is a third shift, and that is a very different energy when we go into the evenings. That feels a little bit more dangerous, and I do think some of the gals that were at the party during the day, either they drank too much or they just weren't interested, or needed to sleep it off for a little bit, stayed put. It was the hardcore gals that were going to stay. So I'm going to pick these up. Definitely a lot of luxury and fun there, but what is that? I didn't expect to have like, three sessions of party there. Um, but this has a much darker kind of milieu. And I do think that Fatty Arbuckle was a little angry by the third shift of this party. I think he was, I don't know if it's because of the gin, because we switched alcohols or what, but it feels like he's almost getting very easily aggravated. He's still jolly and having a good time, but it feels like there's a hair trigger there that he could very easily get upset with someone. So I want to walk in the footsteps of Virginia a little bit. She was very drunk. She was very drunk at this point. Um, I think she was trying to lock him down. I think that, and again, for those of you that are triggered, I am not victim shaming. But I think that she was trying to lock him down as a potential beau. Let's put it that way. Keep in mind, this is 1920. What did I say? 1921. And he just got that $1 million contract. He's well heeled and well known in the industry. So, and I don't think she was very careful, or I don't want to say cognizant, because she just didn't give a crap. She didn't give a crap about any of the relationships that she was possibly in. So it was an opportunity for her to timeline shift. That's what we would say now. And I do think that she was under the impression that this would get back at someone. I think she was trying to get back at someone. And I want to let you guys know, I haven't read 1219. I haven't read 40 Quarts of Liquor. I'm just advising you on that. I know enough about Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle to be dangerous. This was an idea of hers. She did know him before. I don't want you to think they were complete strangers, but this was like, a spontaneous idea. Maybe I'll do this. She had her eye on him for most of the night. She did have her eye on him for most of the night. What role did Maud Delmont really play in shaping this narrative? Now, she was the one who, kind of pitched the whole idea of what had happened. Virginia had some play in that as well, but Maud had said some things, some damning things. Maud was trying to tear him down, and we do see this when people have a modicum of of success or respect in an industry. Sometimes there are malignant people who will try and tear down another individual, and this Maud really was trying to tear him down. What was her beef with him? She just did not want him to be successful. She did not want him to be successful. And I wonder about the 6 of Cups down here. Um, if there was some promise made, if she was interested in possibly doing something with him professionally. Um, I'll have to look it up after the reading, guys. I'll have to look it up. But she had revenge. So here's a big one. Was Fatty Arbuckle responsible for Virginia's condition at the end of the night? One card jumped out. We're going to take it. The Emperor. That's a no. That's a no. He was not responsible for her condition. If we had this in the upright, that might be a yes. Let's put him over here for a minute. Right there. Did they bangarang? Did they? Yeah. Was it wild and rough? Yeah. Yeah. They were drunk. It was a bit raucous. The motivation of Fatty Arbuckle in this circumstance is he wasn't really looking for a girlfriend. It was the end of the summer, after the boys of summer have gone. Was not really looking for anything. And I do think that he was a bit angry at the end of the night. And again, not victim shaming, but I do think she was kind of hanging on him a bit and kind of staking her claim. And we've all seen that. We've all seen gals that kind of stake their claim on a person at a party, and like they kind of are like shunning all the girls off and like he's with me. So I do think that they vote dode. I do think that it was quite athletic and aerobic, let's put it that way. I think it was pretty involved, pretty excited. But I think he didn't have any intentions beyond that. He was not carving out the future. What was Virginia's disposition immediately after? Well, she knew she was kind of a one night stand. She realized it after, and keep in mind, Roaring 20s were just starting. There was a whole kind of women's freedom of sexuality movement happening. Short skirts, cutting your hair off, that kind of thing. There was a bit of that going on, drinking, and I think that this is a circumstance where perhaps she misunderstood that kind of actual freedom for power and control over the situation, and emboldened kind of excitement here. So, Ace of Pentacles, Nine of Cups. Keep getting this Nine of Cups in reverse. I think in the moment, she was hopeful that there would be an extended dance remix, even though he was not giving any indications of that as he was leaving the room. Sweet in the moment is what I'm getting. Sweet in the moment, and then getting dressed and going back to the party. Getting dressed, going back to the party, and not I'm not staying in bed. I'm not staying here. I'm going back. This was just a caesura in the party. I'm going back. And she was, I believe, a little bit annoyed about that. I think she wanted him to stay and wanted to luxuriate in the moment, in an effort to turn this into more. But he was like, I'm not the one, baby. I'm not the one. So, oof, okay. Let's talk a little bit about Virginia. So, Virginia Rappe, and I'll give your eyes a break. She was born on July 7th, 1891, orphaned and raised in Chicago. She worked as a model, actress, but was known for emotional sensitivity and a series of health issues. She had a history of bladder problems and was rumored to have had many pregnancies that did not continue. Um, that may have complicated her condition. She also did have a child out of wedlock at 17. Not that that's a bad thing, but may give us some insight into her willingness to hop into the sack. I'm trying to be kind. I'm not victim shaming here. So she was 30 at the time of her death. Let's have a talk with her. Let's see what she has to say. What was Virginia's emotional state at the party? We're going to do a little timeline for this. So she did not have her summer romances did not pan out, and she was looking to lock down a summer romance. Honestly, while she appeared very young and felt that she was still very youthful, the clock was ticking, to quote um, my cousin Vinny. Her clock was ticking like this. Going to this the summer had not panned out. So I don't know what her summer was like, but her summer had not panned out. And she just didn't have the kind of fun and connection. She didn't lock down the things that she really had wanted to for the summer. Um, this party, and I believe she was invited by not Fatty Arbuckle, but someone else. I think she was invited by, there were producers or something. She was invited by them. Um, and she did go, I believe, with 3 or 4 gals, but she knew a bunch of the gals that were there. She knew a great deal of them. And that room that I talked about earlier that they all went down and kind of fluffed and primped and she was in that room as well smoking. She was smoking in that room. Not that you can't smoke anymore, but she was down there and I had some cigarettes with the girls. Like, does anyone have a cigarette? Um, she was threatened by a number of the gals that were there because she felt like they were younger and fresher. Not gals that were in that one room, but there were some gals that were younger and fresher, and it was more in the face of her that clock was ticking. Um, and I do think here we have this Empress in reverse that possibly there was a pregnancy that was not seen to its end, if you know what I mean. Um, Possibly that summer, possibly. possibly. I'm gonna have to get the book Room 1219. I'm gonna have to read it. So if I do, I'll let you guys know and we can all read it together. Talk about what's going on in it. But I think possibly that was what was going on. There's a soullessness of her that is coming out of desperation, trying to find a place in the world, find a location. Now, the hanging on Fatty Arbuckle, I do think is partly because she is unstable on her feet, partly because I do think that there is a blister. It's such a weird thing to like zero in on. I think there was a blister on her right heel. And I don't think she was wearing her own shoes. I think her shoes were borrowed from someone else, but they're really pretty. Like they're almost like a light purple, like a mauve kind of purple. But they look like a Mary Jane strap with the little heel. Very, very cute shoe. I totally understand why she borrowed it. But I don't think they were hers. I think they were small on her. And I do feel like the toes are a little crunched on that side. The left foot feels okay though. So everybody has two different size feet. So two different size boobs, two different size feet. So at going to this party, and I can't quite place when she got there because I think she was in the hotel earlier in the day. There's something about sandwiches for lunch downstairs. There's like almost an atrium downstairs with open doors. Again, it was very hot. It was a warm day, and they were lunching at the table, eating these like little like fun little sandwiches. Um, really big eyes on her. Really, really big eyes that were very expressive. But when she drank, they would get like a film, almost behind like a film behind those big eyes, but it would cover up the expressions like somebody pulled a curtain. And she was a little bit of a mess that day, a little bit of a mess in terms of her drinking. And I do think she cried at least once that night prior to the events with Fatty Arbuckle. I think she was in an emotional state where she was kind of banged up because the summer didn't pan out the way she wanted, and the summer was over. But it wasn't time for it to be over. She still had more life in her. She still had more things that she wanted to see, more people that she wanted to see. There's something about going back to Los Angeles, that she needed to make it back to Los Angeles because there were some other things that were going on. But this was an opportunity to audition, if you know what I mean. I talk about women auditioning for the role of wifey or the girlfriend role or things like that. I see this all the time where they're auditioning. And this was an opportunity for her to audition for this particular role. So Virginia, was your death caused by the actions that you had with Fatty Arbuckle, or was there something else prior to that? Did he do this to you? It's a no. That's a no, guys. That is a no. No. There was a lot going on. She was heartbroken. Okay, I get it. It's like trying to find a warm place to lay her head. Had you terminated a pregnancy that summer, my dear? She did. She did. Was that part of the issue with your womb and your bladder? It was just meant to be. It was just meant to be. Like, she's like, it doesn't matter anymore. It was just meant to be. It was my time to leave. It was my time to leave. What is your message, Virginia? about this case, about what you left behind, what your death left behind. What is your message today? This is hard for me to say. Well, she's certainly a Republican, let's put it that way. Her message is that the ease of not seeing a pregnancy to fruition is something that is not necessarily a good thing. And that legacy should be embraced. And we should take those situations that one gets themselves in and continue with them. Nothing about being careful, but really about not making that ultimate choice. So again, I'm sorry if anyone's triggered by that as well. You know, I will put some trigger warnings in the description of this video. So let's leave that for a second. Taking a minute. A little selenite, guys. So this case, we're going to keep reading, don't worry, but this case had a lot of media and public pressure that really ruined the career of Fatty Arbuckle despite his acquittal. He was acquitted. He went through 3 trials, November of 2021 through April of 2022. The first 2 trials ended in hung juries, and in the 3rd trial, he was acquitted with a formal apology from the jury. His films were then banned, and his career collapsed. He rebranded himself as William Goodrich, and he directed in anonymity. Yet he died in 1933, which was the same year that Warner Brothers offered him a comeback deal. William Randolph Hearst truly exploited the case and the trial, and famously said that the Fatty Arbuckle trial sold more papers than when the Lusitania went down. So was he a victim of tabloid media? Did the tabloid media ruin him? Now, keep in mind, he died in 1933. He allegedly had a heart attack in his sleep. He was a corpulent man, so possible. He was only 46 years old. For our purposes, he did pass away in New York City. And during this time, he had been married to Minta Durfee. So he was married at the time. The case was actually a manslaughter case. Let's see. Did the media purposely try to destroy Fatty Arbuckle's career? Yeah. 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 It was ishy, let's put it that way. They really did try and destroy him. They wanted to bring somebody down. We see this all the time in tabloid media. We saw it with Johnny Depp. We saw people reveling in the fall of Johnny Depp being such a prolific and amazing actor. Very similar situation here. They wanted to see him fall. Was this a karmic consequence, or simply just something orchestrated by the greed of the media? Karmic consequence. It was greed. It was greed, guys. There it is. Greed. Greed, 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 greed. Terrible, 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 terrible. So, in his final years, never fully recovered his reputation despite being cleared. We've already said that he directed over 20 films under a pseudonym. He died in his sleep of a heart attack, New York City, on June 29th, 1933, age 46. And it was the night that he celebrated his signing his first comeback deal as Fatty Arbuckle in 10 years. How did Fatty Arbuckle feel about his legacy at the end of his life? He was hopeful. But that damn devil. He went to bed saying, "I'm not dead yet. My career is not dead yet." I think we owe this guy a little grace. I think we owe him a little grace. There's so much sorrow right now that I'm experiencing because he didn't get to finish. He didn't get to finish his career. He didn't get to do all the things that he wanted to do. He had plans. He had plans. He does hang around in one of the theaters in Los Angeles, and I do think it's the Chinese theater. I think he goes and he watches the funny movies. He watches the funny ones that come out. Did he find spiritual peace? I'm feeling so much sorrow. I just don't think that he did. He's still waiting to come back. He's not ready yet. He's not ready yet. So any of you out there that are watching this, he's gonna come back. He's gonna come back in a big way. He's gonna come back as a big guy. He's gonna come back as a comedian. He wants another curtain call. He wants another curtain call. And he wants to come back sweet. He wants to come back as like a rom-com chubby guy, which I think is great. There is an unfinished business here that I'm looking forward to seeing the rest of this. I'm looking forward to it. How does his spirit view how he is remembered today? He wants to rectify it. So it came in right away, guys. He wants to rectify it. He wants to restore his good name. He wants to restore that good name. He hates the way that people are seeing him because they saw him as debased. They saw him as violent and awful and mean and terrible and wicked and rough and not a nice guy. And that's not what he was. He wants us to know that it's not what he was. He wanted to help other actors. He wanted to coach other comedians. He wanted to bring more laughter into the world. But he also had a serious side. And I think that when he does make his return, I certainly welcome him back. I am emotional, guys. I want you to know that. I am like kind of emotional about this. This was a reading long overdue. I really wanted to do this one. It's really long, and if you stuck with me through it, I really appreciate it. Because this is one that was calling to me for a long time. So, he wants another chance. Wants to bring it back. I can't blame him. Cannot blame him. So, let me know what you think about the Fatty Arbuckle case. Um, and if you're going to get the book down below, let me know. Maybe we'll have like a sit down in a couple of weeks when we all read it. I'm gonna get it today, and I'm gonna get room 1219, and I'm gonna start reading that. I think that's gonna be my birthday present to myself. But let me know what you think about this particular case, and also about the way that I did this reading, because I really was very emotionally moved by the psychic experience that I'm having in this. The party room is fantastic. Um, and maybe we'll do a group remote view on the party if some of you would like to do that. So let me know that down below. We could do that as a private event, and maybe we'll even do it on the same night. Let me know what you guys think. I thank you for watching this. I thank you for sticking with me through it. It was a very, very emotional reading for me. So I appreciate you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And let me know if you'd like to see more like this. I love the golden age of Hollywood. I love the pre-golden age of Hollywood, which this really is. This is the silent era that really laid the foundations for the Hollywood that we have today. And I think, looking back on this particular case, we're not looking at the wickedness of Hollywood, but we're looking at the manipulative side of Hollywood that grew out of this age. So, and we're seeing that today in media and tabloid reporting, that kind of thing. So, I do think that Fatty Arbuckle was a victim of media and the money that things like this, cases like this, can draw in. So let me know what you think, and I'll see you guys in the future.